right. So this question here is asking, what is a chemical formula for hydrogen oxide? So, chemical formula for hydrogen oxide. So, this actually would not even, this doesn't exist as a, based on the naming rules, the nomenclature rules actually, hydrogen oxide is not a real name that you can use. Sorry, I just want to make sure this is charging. Yeah, because the rule is actually, okay, let's look at the periodic table. What's hydrogen? This is a not non-metal, and oxide just stands for oxygen really. That's also non-metal. Based on the proper naming rules, okay, hydrogen, that hydrogen part needs to indicate how many hydrogens there are. Even if there's only one, what you should see is monohydrogen oxide. Okay, that at least is what you should be seeing. Hydrogen oxide, not a real even like name for it. And monohydrogen oxide, although it doesn't exist, it kind of just be OH. Okay, and I mentioned this is because you need this part. You cannot drop it in the proper naming rules when you're dealing with nonmetals. For ionic compounds, yes, you can just say, you don't say monosodium chloride, you just say sodium chloride. But when it comes to two nonmetals, so covalent bonds, covalent molecules, you have to state how many they are in the beginning, the first element. So with that being said, actually, if someone said not monohydrogen oxide, someone said something a lot more familiar. They said dihydrogen oxide. Okay, that, okay, would actually be what we know as H2O. Okay, that is actually that hydrogen oxide. And now there's one special one. I know I just said the whole rule of, you know, hydrogen has to be named, but if you said hydrogen peroxide, so this is one of those okay, special cases. Okay, peroxide means that, so oxygen typically nature likes to run around in O2, right? Okay, but peroxide is when you take half of that, so you really just have one hydrogen, one oxygen, and exactly one hydrogen. But here's where it gets complicated. That's not how it shows up. Although it has that name here, which is what you would want to put, you would think it's like monohydrogen oxide. Hydrogen peroxide is H2O2. Technically, yes, it still has that whole half of the oxygen, because typically it'd want to be, you know, the H2O. That's its much stable form. It will look like that. Sorry, it will look like this. That's water. But hydrogen peroxide says, no, I'm not going to do that. It's just a completely different molecule. So that is hydrogen peroxide. In regards to just an hydrogen oxide, that's something that doesn't really exist, as I stated. You definitely need to designate it. Hydrogen peroxide definitely breaks even the rule that I stated earlier, but I'm guessing it gets a pass because at least the second element actually has a quantity next to it. So exactly, this one says dihydrogen monoxide. Water is usually the name that's used. If I remember correctly, it seems that they want you to be able to name as in include both. So maybe the case is that you actually want to label how many of your second element you have. But either way, if you don't have the prefix, this right here, hydrogen oxide, just is not a thing, unfortunately. So for this one, I would definitely review the answers, the nomenclature. I believe it's just that you need the one in the front, but there's a high possibility that for covalent compounds, you need both indicators. They need to indicate how many of each one you have, okay? But then again, it raises the question of why hydrogen doesn't say monohydrogen peroxide. So definitely something to contemplate in regards to these type of questions. But with that, let's move on to question 11 here. Okay. Now let's see here. Just a quick